Okay, students, we're going to now go ahead and try number 2. Number 2, you notice it has a negative in front of this absolute value. So when I go to plug in this -2 here, I'm going to have a negative and then a -2 inside this absolute value. It's very important not to try to distribute that negative inside the absolute value, but just to take the absolute value of -2 first. Never try to move anything into or outside of an absolute value. It's very difficult, tends to make a mess. So absolute value of -2, it's 2 away from 0, so then I have a negative left with just a plain 2. So that means it's a -2 for the first one. Now, when I go to plug in the next one, when I plug in that -1, I'm going to have the same thing. I cannot distribute the two negatives together, so the absolute value of -1 is 1, so the negative in front stays, and then I have -1. As I continue to plug in, if I plugged in a 0, I would have a 0. If I plug in a positive 1, even if that 1 was positive, its absolute value is still positive 1, and the negative in front keeps it as a -1. And then the same thing for a -2. If I continue with that, I'm going to have -2, -2, -1, -1, 0, 0, 1, -1, and 2, -2, because the x coordinate is across, the y coordinate is up and down. Then I can connect the dots, and it would keep going down in this direction. Connect the dots this way, keep going down in this direction. Another V-shaped graph. It's important, once again, to look at the maximum or minimum. In this case, I have a maximum, but it's still the vertex, whether it's the maximum or the minimum point of 0, 0. And once I know that my vertex is 0, 0, I'm ready to talk about domain and range. So my domain of this one, I'm looking at x value. So once again, the x value, I can keep on going as far as I want to in a positive direction. Could keep moving to the right all the way off the screen. I could keep moving to the left all the way across off the screen. So my domain is all real numbers, which is that fancy double bar R. For the range, I can go down as far as I want, because whether I go to the right or to the left, my y values are going down. So my y values can be very negative, but I cannot go up as far as I want. I have a maximum of 0. So since 0 is my maximum, it's going to be my second number, and my first value is going to be my minimum value, which in this case is -infinity. Now, when you go to draw your parenthesis and stuff, you're going to have a parenthesis there because you can never actually touch -infinity. So not the world's prettiest parenthesis, but that's parenthesis, I guess. Actually, let's clean that up a little bit. It looked a lot like a bracket, so let's try again. That's going to be a parenthesis of -infinity, and since it actually touches 0, it's going to be a bracket on the 0. So you're always going to have a parenthesis with your infinity because you can never get there, and if it actually touches the number, you're going to have a bracket for that number, since that's an actual point on your graph, a closed circle at 0, 0. It does not matter if it's marked as a closed circle or if it's just a point on the graph. It's still a bracket, one of those square ones.